we are fundamentally indestructible souls. We're eternal. We're infinite. This is a temporary experience that we have agreed to abide by. Space-time perspective creates an appearance of separation from spirit. We never leave spirit. Physical reality is something that's happening inside our consciousness, within the soul. We can't actually leave the experience of physical reality before the timing in which we've agreed to end. So that's why you have things like near-death experiences. If you're not real clear, you can't make the leap to the next level. People get this confused all the time. Density and dimension. We will become members of the Galactic Alliance, of the Galactic Federation. One of the strongest markers of that beginning will be in a couple of years. I don't want to get too political here. He's not going to be in office at that time.
How does Bashar recommend that we prepare for this contact?
Welcome everybody to the Heart Coherence Collaborative. We're so excited. We have our friend Darryl Anchor back with us again. Welcome back, Darryl.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate being.
So we have a bunch of questions from your community again today, so we're going to just dive right in. Do you have anything you want to say before we jump in?
Just so happy you're back. I think you might be our most reoccurring guest.
Our favorite guest.
And also, don't say that out loud because then the other people will hear it, but you're pretty tops on the list.
Thank you.
And the HCC loves you. Our community loves you.
Thank you. Well, say hello to everyone for me.
Awesome. Is there anything that Bashar knows about reality that humans are not ready to hear?
Well, about reality, I think he's pretty much said everything. The idea is, of course, we with our belief systems are creating our physical reality experience because physical reality is something that's happening inside our consciousness. We're not really in a place outside of spirit. We are still in spirit. We never leave spirit. That's our natural state, as I've said, and as Bashar has said. But we create a condition within our spiritual focus that creates an experience within our consciousness that we call physical reality. So that focus allows us to explore and discover a different perspective of ourselves, to grow in that way, to expand creation in that way. So, he's pretty much laid that out for quite some time. There may be subtle nuances within it that, bear repeating, that people may not be grasping right away, and certainly a deeper understanding of our belief systems and how they work can help us understand how to navigate the experience of physical reality, and understanding that we all choose a life path and the challenges in that life path from spirit before we incarnate, before we have the experience of incarnation, which again is something happening in the soul. We don't actually ever leave spirit and go into a body, although that's how it appears from physical reality, because we're now looking at it from a space-time perspective. And so because that space-time perspective creates an appearance of separation from spirit, then we have to say, oh, well, the spirit leaves the spirit world, the spirit enters a body, and then the spirit navigates physical reality by, manipulating that body. But what's actually happening is the spirit, the energy that we are, the soul that we are, focuses a portion of itself, so to speak, down into the center of its being. And that focus becomes our experience of physical reality. So all of this is happening within the soul.
So would you say this is a simulation? Because that was another question somebody asked. And if so, who's running it?
We are. Yes, in a sense, it's a simulation because, again, it's a projection of our consciousness. If you want to label this experience a simulation, you can. But when many people ask that question, is this a simulation? They assume that that's coming from somewhere or someone outside. It's not. It's our simulation. It's our projection. And we create it by agreement with each other. And therefore, that's how we're able to, quote unquote, share experiences in the simulation, is because all life paths that we arrange for ourselves are interlinked. It's all interconnected. That's what synchronicity is all about. Everything is interconnected.
What has Bashar ever said about deja vu? and what that really is.
So weird. I was thinking that same thing as she said it. So that's got to mean something, right?
Synchronicity.
Well, there may be a couple of ways that deja vu can actually occur. Number one, when, like I said, we are in spirit, speaking from a linear perspective before we incarnate, we lay out our life path. Sometimes based on the state of our consciousness in physical reality, we might be a little more open, a little more receptive to more of ourselves. We might connect into our life path in a way that we sort of unconsciously now suddenly know what it is that's about to unfold on our life path. And so it's almost like our physical mind gets a sneak peek of what we already laid out. And when we catch up to that moment, then there's that sense of, wait a minute, this has happened before. But all it is the physical mind suddenly realizing that this was all planned out ahead of time in the spiritual life path. Another way that deja vu can happen is the idea of parallel reality experiences, where one parallel reality may be slightly ahead of ours, and it might be very close, very similar to ours with another version of us, another person experiencing what would seem to be a sort of a twin life path or something like that. It's not actually us experiencing it, it is another person, even if they sort of look like us. But sometimes we can tap into that parallel reality. And if that version has already experienced something that we have yet to experience, then again, when our paths catch up, we catch up to that particular thing that's already happened in their reality, but suddenly we link to it consciously and go, this feels familiar because it's already happened in another parallel reality, even though it's only now just happening in mine. So there's a couple of reasons, and there may be more reasons for that experience we call deja vu.
I know it's coming. It might be one that I got, but go ahead.
How can we tell the difference between real synchronicity that's meaningful and just coincidence? Because we're living in a world where, there's roll of the dice, things could happen and mean nothing.
Yeah,
How can we
well,
tell the difference?
when you say coincidence, again, it's still synchronicity. Everything is synchronicity. What you mean by coincidence is there may be different degrees of relevance to
Hmm.
the synchronicity that's happening. So let's say you're, in a traffic jam and there's hundreds of cars there. It may not necessarily be that the meaning is that profound or pronounced for you, but your willingness to synchronistically help create that traffic jam may be important for someone else in that traffic jam because, again, it's all an orchestration. So let's say your willingness to help a bunch of people and agree with a bunch of people to create the traffic jam stopped someone from speeding ahead and getting into an accident and killing themselves. So you're part of still a synchronistic overall agreement, but it may not necessarily have a lot of relevance for you. You're just helping someone else discover something or experience something, even if they don't even know why they're in that traffic jam. So the synchronicity takes place on many different levels, a higher level, spirit level, physical level, but it's all synchronicity. So when we say coincidence, it might just be that it's synchronicity that has a smaller degree of relevance for your particular life path, but you're still willing to agree to help out for someone else's life path.
That makes me think, is it more important to, you hear people talk about personal timeline jumping, and I just heard you mention kind of a collective timeline. Would you think it's better for us to try to, manifest our individual timeline or try to just operate in the highest best of the collective timeline?
Well, both. I mean, what's the difference? Because if all our life paths are interconnected, we have laid out the challenges for ourselves individually, and we have agreed to participate in whatever challenges will automatically help the collective simultaneously. So it's not like we have to make that decision, which one do I want to do? It's all laid out in terms of the challenges you're going to face. Now, yes, we have free will in terms of how we face those challenges, but we've laid out those experiences. So if these challenges are going to help you individually, that's what you will experience individually. If the challenge will help the collective, you'll be part of that because you've already decided to do that in this life. How you experience it is up to your free will in terms of, do you experience it happily? Do you experience it with sadness? Do you experience it with consciousness or unconsciousness? Do you move quickly through it? Do you move slowly through it? You can change the sort of scale and speed and scope of what you're experiencing, but the challenge itself has been laid out by you from your soul level before you incarnated. So both individual and collective challenges or experiences are already part of your path.
I love that. That's so profound. You chose this, anybody listening. So,
Yeah, yeah, we have absolute free will in that sense. Our greatest power is the freedom to choose. And yes, once the soul has chosen a physical life path, yes, our physical selves do have to live it out because it is an agreement. Momentum has been created that you have to follow through on. And we have part of our spiritual team helps us stay on that track. In other words, we can't actually leave the experience of physical reality before the timing in which we've agreed to end. So that's why you have things like near-death experiences where people they die and they meet their guides and the guides say, it's not your time yet, you got to go back. Not because of what they're saying, because of what you originally decided was important for your soul's growth.
wow.
And therefore they're helping you keep your appointments, keep your agreements, and finish what it is you agreed to start.
Appreciate just throwing in explanation of near-death experiences. That was great.
Yeah. I would love to hear you talk about the Interstellar Alliance, what that is.
Well, it's a collection of extraterrestrial beings that are working cooperatively together in some sort of formal agreement, I suppose, where they have certain policies, have how they relate to each other, how they relate to other civilizations that may be new to them or not even becoming aware that ETs exist yet or that there is such an alliance. Um, so, it's what we have been dealing with a part of the alliance. People can refer to it as a federation, an association, whatever they want to call it. Um, but there have been members of that alliance that have been dealing with us behind the scenes, helping us move forward, helping us figure out how to navigate the choices that we've made in a more positive way, how to use everything to our benefit behind the scenes. Now, that's been going on for quite some time. We will eventually join that alliance. We will become members of the Galactic Alliance, of the Galactic Federation in time. That may start to really happen in earnest over the next couple of decades, but my understanding is one of the strongest markers of that beginning will be in a couple of years when we are actually introduced finally openly to the fact that ETs exist. And that will start the ball rolling toward us becoming members and rejoining our galactic family and becoming a member of the Alliance in the next few decades.
What are the biggest changes we expect to see, or you expect to see in the next 10 years? Like, because we hear some people say that we're heading for a golden age, and then I hear people say that we're heading for a great reckoning. So I'm curious, is it both? What do you think?
Well, yeah, in a sense, it's both. It's kind of like you have to sort of go through what you're calling a reckoning or an assessment of where we have been and use that to decide where we actually prefer to be. And that can push us more into what you're referring to as a golden age. Again, with the help of spirit, with the help of ETs, who, again, as far as I understand from Bashar, will be openly introduced to our society in the next 2 years. So that's really going to give us an opportunity to go, okay, this has been going on behind the scenes. Now it's admitted openly that they're here, that they've been assisting us. What do we want to do with that? I think each group, each country will still sort of be allowed to decide how much or how little they want to change according to that new information, according to those new opportunities being presented to us by ETs. So that's why, what's been said is we're kind of in the middle of a 3-decade reset of humanity from 2020 to 2050, where we do kind of have to go through some rapids in order to sort of bust things up and not do things the way we've been doing them, to really look at what it is we don't prefer, to decide what it is, by contrast, that we do prefer, so that we can start making better choices for ourselves individually and collectively, and move forward with the help of ETs and spirits into what you're referring to as more of a golden age, where we do become members eventually of a galactic society.
Our mission here at the Heart Coherence Collaborative is to get people in touch with the healing power of the heart.
And we really need your help. Right now, only 1% of viewers subscribe. We are aiming to take that number to 6%.
The reason why we want to do that is the more people that subscribe, the more people in the world can learn the magical practice of heart coherence.
So please help us out. If you've ever listened, if you love this message, please just take a moment to subscribe.
Thank you so much. We love you.
We love you. How does Bashar recommend that we prepare for this contact, both personally, and is there anything that we could and should be doing in terms of relating to our government to encourage this to be the most peaceful and fruitful contact?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you've said it. I mean, first of all, of course, as Bashar points out, follow the formula that he shares with all of us, because that really bridges both individuality and the collective. Because when you follow your passion and you are expressing your gifts, you're sharing with the community, you're sharing with the collective, and you're also fulfilling your personal life path by doing so. So anything that you can do that you're excited about with regard to the idea of contact, that is a peaceful, positive, constructive action that you can take on your part to talk to government officials, say, you know, this is what we prefer. We believe that there is information that should be brought out in disclosure. You know, we need to know, we have a right to know what's going on. Doing that peacefully and lovingly, I think, helps. But also any action you can take to improve your own lives, raise your own vibration, help others in appropriate situations raise their vibration, is going to make us more viable for connecting to ETs who are operating on a much higher frequency than we are. So we kind of have to meet them halfway. So doing anything that raises our frequency is in the direction of open contact.
So we've had on a bunch of different spiritual channels, and it seems like sometimes their messages may be contradicting to each other. I'm curious, do you ever listen to some spiritual channels and Bashar will call them out and be like, that's bullcrap? Or is it in everyone's own reality because they believe it's actually real?
Well, there's a lot to unpack in that.
We got time.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, because it's partly what you're saying and partly not. The idea, of course, is that everyone has to hear things in their own way, because they're sort of trained and geared to listen to things in the way that they can most easily absorb them. Also, I'm going to say sometimes things may sound contradictory, and it may just be a difference of terminology or semantics. And so you have to kind of parse that out. It's like, are they actually saying the same thing, but using different ways of describing them? And it can sound like it's contradictory, but when you really get down into it, it's not. Some things may be completely contradictory, and that may be because the person is filtering through their own belief system. But again, they're delivering information to the way others who have a similar belief system may need to even be capable of approaching the subject. But yes, I think you have to be careful to be discerning. You have to be careful to be more clear about what the overall big picture is that can help inform the smaller details. Some of it coming through people probably isn't accurate. But again, you have to decide for yourself what rings true for you, and what does not. Now, for the most part, as a very generalized caveat, I would say, not meaning that anyone should ignore what's happening or anything like that, or not pay attention to what's going on in our physical reality. But it's probably healthier to focus on the information that is constructive, self-empowering, and moves you forward in a more positive way, as opposed to getting lost in any information that might be controlling or try to foment fear in you, like conspiracy theories and things like that, that are very negative. I would be very careful about listening to information where the information is trying to put you in a fearful place, because that's going to lower your frequency. And it's going to make it a little bit more challenging for you to raise that frequency by buying into those things. So again, sometimes people may need to be exposed to that so that eventually they may come around to going, okay, this is not working for me. And they'll be the filter that will discern for themselves what is true for them and not. So it's kind of a little difficult to just pinpoint and say, yeah, that's bullshit and this is not. It depends on how you get there. It depends on the purpose for why it's being delivered the way it's being delivered, as much for the deliverer as for the ones receiving it. It's, again, something that may be a challenge on a life path that these people have agreed to experience together, so they can work together to figure out whether they're delivering information cleanly and clearly, whether they're dealing with their own negative and fear-based belief systems and filtering the information in that way, whether they have a different agenda altogether in terms of controlling people's lives, and making themselves feel more powerful by delivering information that might be a little bit more controlling as opposed to self-empowering. So you have to look at all those aspects of any information, including Bashar's, and decide for yourself what rings true.
I was actually thinking about this exact topic, and I know at a certain point I heard Bashar was going to have a broadcast about the truth. In other words, the larger truths that are being uncovered, and then, the importance of having our own truth be shared in our own lives. And I know I had also read everything about conspiracy theories and instructions about how to relate to that. So I know we were just talking about the people who are speaking those things, but I think I would just love any more information that would be as practical as possible about how we can balance that, the need for truth, with being neutral around and not being sucked into conspiracy theories.
Well, again, you have to remember that we are fundamentally indestructible souls. We're eternal. We're infinite. This is a temporary experience that we have agreed to abide by. And it gives us an opportunity to challenge ourselves, to grow, to overcome fear and negativity, and to go into a more positive direction. But again, this is why Bashar gives us the formula. It is literally a self-contained kit that contains everything that's relevant, everything we need to do exactly what you're talking about. So it's really about getting a better grip on that particular instruction manual that he's already delivered to us, in order to see clearly and attract clearly what we need in our lives to move forward, and what we need in our lives to help others move forward when it's appropriate to interact with them in that way. So I understand that he can spend many hours talking to people about the details of the formula to get them, give them a clearer understanding of how to use it. But the 5 steps of the formula is it. There is no more. It doesn't get any more complicated than that. And so it's the idea of, well, what else can we do? What else can we do? What else can we do? Just do the formula as perfectly and precisely and cleanly and clearly as you can, in the same way that if somebody handed you an instruction manual to operate a piece of machinery, you go, well, what else can I do? It's like all the instructions are there in the manual. Don't add any more instructions. Don't take any instructions away. He's given you a distillation, a pure distillation of how we create our physical reality experience. So if you just take the time to really learn what those points actually are all about, what they mean, and dig deeper into what's already there, you'll be able to answer a lot of the questions like that one that you're asking, and so will everyone else who uses the formula that way.
Before we go, we'll have you run through those steps just for anyone new listening. But
Sure.
I'm curious, have you or Bashar come across any spiritual teachings that you think are currently misleading people?
Spiritual teachings.
Any teachings?
Well, I was going to say, if they're truly spiritual, they're not misleading people. If
Mhm.
they're misleading people, they're probably not very spiritual.
Hmm.
Um, Now, again, people may need different devices. I mean, let's just use the typical idea of what religions offer to people in certain cases. I think the idea that if, you don't do this or you don't do that, you're going to go and burn in hell for eternity. I personally believe is based on all the research I've done, near-death experience reports, all that kind of stuff, what Bashar has said, what other channels have said, what Spirit have said. I don't believe that's true. People talk about the idea that whatever they want to call God, God, Goddess, all that is, whatever they want to call the idea of the, one intelligence, one awareness, one consciousness that we're all part of, they often will admit that it's unconditional love. It's unconditionally loving. But they keep saying, but, if you do this, you're going to get punished and you're going to be judged. Well, then they've completely forgotten what the word unconditional means. So, it's the idea that you will learn lessons, you will experience the consequences of any choice that you make and any action that you take. But as a learning lesson, it's not a judgment, it's not a punishment. It's to help your soul grow. So this is why in a lot of near-death experiences, people talk about the idea of what's called the life review when you die, where you experience every single moment of the physical life you just had, and you look at the consequences and feel the consequences of every choice you made as if you're the person being affected by the choices you made. Because now there's no barrier between you. There's no time-space separational difference between you. And so everything that you created that caused any kind of a reaction in someone else in the life review will be experienced by you as if it's happening to you. So you get to see what the other person's perspective was on that. And it's not, again, about you're right, you're wrong, this was bad, this was good. It's like, this is what happens when you do this. This is the effect. This is what you put out is what you get back. This is where you were at, and this is what happened. And again, it's just more of an observational experience, even though you're feeling it, but you're also slightly removed. You're kind of like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize that me doing that or saying that would cause that reaction in that person. So it's really just more about like a classroom lesson. You're like, well, this is what happens when you do that. Oh, okay. Well, that's probably not something I ever want to do again. So I'll remember that if I'm going to have another incarnation, and I'll do my best to avoid doing that. And over time, that's how you grow, and that's how you become an ascended being over time by having these hundreds and thousands of lifetime experiences that teach you over that amount of time how to refine yourself, how to make better choices, how to make choices that are more beneficial for others as well as yourself. So, in that sense, the idea that there is a limit to that experience by saying, well, you do this, you sin this way, and you're going to go to hell, and you're going to be eternally punished, and there's no out to that. It's kind of ridiculous and pointless when you think about the idea of a limitless, infinite, eternal presence, because there's always another chance to learn. There's always another chance to expand, and always another chance to grow and learn lessons. That's the whole point. Because if any part of all that is suddenly stopped itself and cut itself off, it'd be like, you going, well, okay, next time I'm going to try and manipulate this, but in the meantime, I'm going to cut off 3 of my fingers and I'll never have them again. Well, then that's going to make it more difficult for you to do what you need to do next. So no soul is damned and condemned and cut off from the unconditional experience of all that is. You create your experience. So let's say someone truly, truly believed that what they did would propel them into hell. As soon as they die, because in the spirit world, your thoughts will instantaneously create what you believed you would experience, you may experience the idea of horrible burning hellfire. But as soon as you go, oh, I don't like this, you're out of it. You've changed it because now you realize I'm creating this experience. I'm judging myself. I'm not being judged. I believe this is what I would experience, and therefore that's what I'm experiencing. Because in spirit, there's no time lag. What you believe and what you think is what you experience instantly. There's no time lag, as there is in physical reality experience. So as soon as they would experience hellfire, I would think, unless a person is a diehard masochist, they would suddenly wish they were somewhere else, and they will instantly be somewhere else. So
Great.
you can experience all those things. I doubt that you will hold on to the ones that have been described by religions as extreme punishment. I just don't think you would be able to last that long in something like that, and you would get yourself out of it instantly.
What's going on in those cases that are extreme, like sociopaths and psychopaths? I think we all have a hard time imagining ourselves as that incarnation and also wondering what happens to those people. What's their next?
The same thing that happens to anyone, but they may have chosen a path or made choices that allow them to sort of limit themselves to such a degree and let's say traumatize themselves to such a degree that they may need a little more of a rest period, a healing period in the afterlife before they continue on to recover from the trauma that they actually created in their own energy by being that kind of a person. Again, it's something they can learn from. I'm not condoning it and certainly not in any way, shape, or form saying that a perpetrator of things like that should not experience consequences. But again, the consequences are experienced in the life review more strongly than anything we could ever do to them. So, and in that experience, they will hopefully learn the lessons and they will be helped by their guides, their soul family, the angelic beings. We all have a spirit team. They never leave us. I mean, they have their own lives, but they're always here for us if we need them. Remember, they can hear us more easily than we can hear them right now. So the instant that you call on them, if you need help, they're there and they will help you through these things. And especially if you've had a life like that has severely traumatized you as a being, they'll help you recover in the afterlife. They'll say, okay, what did you learn from that? And they'll help take you through it step by step. So, even those people are going to be given the opportunity to recover from that experience, if that's what they chose, and to use it in a positive way to learn lessons from it that can make them a better person or a better soul from that point forward, if you want to say it that way.
So one of our first interviews that we did, it got 500,000 views, and the title was "The Earth is Splitting Right Now," because you talked a lot about the Earth splitting. And since that time, I've seen a lot of different channels actually using that same title and focusing their interview around that topic. In a recent interview we did, you talked about there being a little evolution in that process, and it was further along. So I'd love for just an update on where is the Earth at in its evolution? Is it splitting right now? What's going on?
It's been splitting, and the idea, of course, is that you can have any number of realities that fit the belief systems that you have. I take it as a positive sign that, if it's true that we're going to have open contact in a couple of years, that's very soon. So I can only imagine that the people that are aiming in that direction are shifting into a reality where that's possible, whereas there may be people that are shifting into a reality where they don't want to experience that. They may be too afraid or what have you. So they'll have their reality where they don't necessarily experience that. And they won't be in the reality where those who are experiencing it are experiencing it. So we'll split. We are splitting more and more and more. And I think you're starting to see signs of that anyway, because, there are people who are adamant about certain things that are happening that is really, really representative of what they believe the reality to be. And there are people that are just as adamant that are completely opposite to them. So it doesn't necessarily mean that one is diluted. It could be that both of them are actually truly experiencing different realities where what they are saying they're experiencing is absolutely real for them. And that could be one of the first symptoms of the idea that we are splitting into different realities where we are experiencing different things.
So could I ask one quick follow-up? Every time I hear this, I wonder, are we splitting into specifically two different Earths that are very polar, or is it actually we're splitting into infinite Earths?
Multiples.
Yeah.
It's just easier to talk about too.
Yeah, right.
Because we think in terms of polar opposites often, and so it's just easier to say, well, one half will go this way and some will go that way. But it's really a matter of gradation, and it's a matter of whatever your belief systems are may fit this reality a little bit better than this one, and these belief systems may fit this one a little bit better than this one, and so on down the line. Now, it may not necessarily be infinite in that sense, because there may be only a finite number of realities that represent the experience we call physical Earth. So, it may be finite, it may be infinite, it doesn't really matter. You're going to wind up on the one that you're navigating to with the vibrations that you create within yourself. And this is another reason why it's so important from Bashar's perspective to follow the formula. The formula is acting literally like a rudder, like a navigational tool, to make sure that you are going in the direction you're navigating and shifting in the direction through different parallel realities that are more and more representative of your higher and better frequencies. So that's another reason why it's important in terms of how the formula will actually operate.
So just to be clear, it's like, is it the two primary splits are 3D and 5D, and then there's subsequent?
No. 5D is non-physical.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. People get this confused all the time. Density and dimension.
Mm-hmm.
Density is like states within a country. Dimensions are different countries.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we're going from third density to fourth density, which is a higher vibratory state in the fourth dimension, physically. 3 of space, 1 of time. When you go into fifth density, you are also going into the fifth dimension, which is non-physical. So you have to understand what the borders are actually like. So you can tap into fifth density spirit energy from a third density vibration, and that coming together creates the fourth density physical being. So you're using fifth density energy to elevate yourself into a fourth density physical being. But when you finally actually shift into fifth density, you're a spirit again.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, people have to treat densities like states and dimensions like countries.
So from this split, then what's happening from a density perspective? Is it third and fourth?
It's third going to fourth. Now, again, in terms of varying degrees of third density and fourth density. So some people may stay in third density, and that will be the Earth that they experience. Some people will go into fourth density a little bit, and that will be the Earth they experience. Some people will go into fourth density a lot more, and that will cause differences in the Earth they experience. So again, it's like a spectrum. It's not just this black and white, it's this or that. It's this and that, and that, and that, and that, in varying degrees according to our frequency. So just like on Earth, some people, they like to go to the beach and they just like to sit on the sand. Some people like to dip their toes in the water. Some people like to swim out into the waves. Some people like to surf the waves. So there are varying degrees of what you can experience when you say, I'm going to the beach. So there are varying degrees of what you can experience when you say, I'm shifting to different variations of the realities that are available to us.
So
It's a
what
matter
is it
of
that's
degree.
actually intensifying the split? Because everyone's saying, the split is happening now. What's actually intensifying it? Is it the pull from each density?
We're at the end of a cycle and the beginning of a new cycle. Earth is a planet of cycles. We have pretty much, let's say, gone. It's like, well, it's basically like graduating from third grade to fourth grade. It's like you're done with the lessons of the third grade. Most of you. Some people will have to repeat the class because they didn't get the point. They
See
may
you
have
guys
to go
again
to
next year.
Like,
they may have to go to summer school, whatever. And some people will repeat the third grade, but some people will go, I'm done with those lessons. I'm now going to the fourth grade or whatever.
maybe skip a
So
grade.
yeah. So it's just basically there are cycles of lessons, and you are at the end of a certain cycle of lessons, and you now can go and graduate to a new cycle of different lessons. And
Gotcha.
that's now happening more collectively than it is just individually. See, we've been doing it for so long, for many thousands and thousands of years, we have finally arrived, in a sense, for the most part, at the graduation point where it's time to have learned the lessons of the third density and now move into the lessons of the fourth density. That's just the timing of the cycles of the Earth and what it's for. And the fact that we're looking at things like, oh, now we've discovered 5,000 plus exoplanets, and we know there's probably life on some of them, and intelligent life, and UFOs, and we're expanding our consciousness and talking about spirit and near-death experiences. All of these are the indications that there are new lessons opening up for us and that it's time to close the books on the third density for most people.
Love that. Great answer. You can
Okay,
ask
now we have like
you, you,
5 different.
you can ask a few in a row because I just asked like 10.
Okay. One, what has happened to us in all of these times when we seem to, as humans, have evolved and developed all this technology, and then we get sort of crushed back by either something natural that happens or something mysterious that we don't understand? What's going on with all of those Atlantis and,
Well,
Egyptian
it's
and all of
it's
that?
yeah, like I just said, Earth is a reality of cycles. And if you, again, vibrationally connect to a cycle that is more, well, it's time to start over, it's time to clean the slate, it's time to go back to zero, that's what you'll experience. And humanity has been experiencing that for quite some time. These are the lessons of the third density reality cycles, where you reach a certain point, and if you're not real clear, you can't make the leap to the
Mm.
next level. A few people do, a few people can, and they leave that information behind for the next group, the next round, the next class. But it's a planet of classes, it's a planet of graduating. And we have had collectively not a lot of graduating over thousands of years. But now, because of the acceleration of a lot of things, we have the potential for more people to graduate to the next level than ever before because it's been cumulative over time. We've learned those lessons. That's why we suddenly are looking at things like Atlantis and what happened and why were they destroyed, and can we avoid that, and the information they left behind in the temples and pyramids for us to discover. And oh, look, there's information here. Is this information something that we need that can help us not go through a destructive cycle again? Can we mitigate that somehow? Can we learn the lesson of how to continue instead of how to start over again and again, again and again?
Has Bashar ever talked about specifics about why, like why Atlantis failed? Some of the past things of what happened?
Yes, I mean, again, there was apparently a split, kind of like we're experiencing today, into what Edgar Casey referred to as the sons of light and the sons of darkness. So again, there was a lot of negativity that started brewing and growing, and fear-based ideas that started injecting themselves into the society. And so there really became a large split. And I guess to the point where enough of them started becoming more warlike, more conquering, and, starting to take over and all this kind of stuff and doing things they weren't necessarily great for the populace to do, certain experiments and all sorts of stuff. And it just brought about enough that they put themselves on the cycle to ride the wave of destruction that was potentially there for them to experience if they couldn't make the leap. Now, my understanding of what actually happened is a comet struck the Atlantic Ocean and several other spots on its way down to Earth, with bits and pieces of it falling off. But the main chunk hit the Atlantic Ocean and caused a tsunami that wiped Atlantis out. And this is one of the reasons why today we still have the collective memory, and we don't really know why, but we have the collective memory that comets are omens of destruction, right? Everyone, in ancient lore, it's like, oh, there's a comet in the sky, something bad is going to happen. It's a bad omen. That's why, because we still have the collective racial memory that a comet pretty much ended one of the highest civilizations on the earth. So I think that was ensconced in our genetic memory to such a traumatic degree that we still retain the actual faint memory of anytime you see a comet, it's like, uh-oh, something negative could happen here. We have to be careful. So it's been rendered down into a superstition, but I think it's actually a racial memory of something that destroyed Atlantis. And it's what was also referred to as the feathered serpent, because again, of the tendrils coming off of it and coming down to Earth. So, there's a lot you can sort of suss out from a lot of our legends that do have their basis in truth, but they've morphed and, evolved or devolved into superstition, into legend, into myth.
So do I understand that the human reset that started about 2020 and is going to go to 2050, that it's us ascending to the fourth density? And what is it going to look like? What are we going to be? What is that evolution going to end
Well,
with us as a species?
remember that ETs are going to be here helping us. So we're going to have the advantage of their knowledge, their experience, their technology. So probably things like free energy, things like planetary management, things like feeding everyone, things like relaxing of things like political borders, really understanding that we are one humanity. And like I said, ultimately becoming members of a galactic society. So we will go out among the stars as well. Like Bashar has often sort of semi-joked, eventually, not necessarily by 2050, but beyond that, will become other civilizations UFOs. We'll help them start wondering, oh, look, what's this? Is there life beyond our planet? So, basically following in the footsteps of the more advanced ETs who will help us up the ladder by helping us manage the Earth, by allowing us to recover the Earth ecologically, by mitigating, our systems, our social, political, financial, religious systems in such a way that it becomes more even-handed across the board and gives us a more direct understanding of our spiritual connection to all that is, things like that.
So, you were talking about the comets. I'm curious, has Bashar mentioned anything in the future, any astrological events, anything that we need to worry about moving forward?
Not to any great degree. There will certainly be, things like earthquakes and volcanoes and stuff like that. But again, remember, your vibration is going to determine where you are and how you experience those things. So, not to any great degree globally. There may be some temporary disruptions from things like coronal mass ejections from the sun that will maybe mess with our electronic equipment for a while, a few days, whatever. There may be some things that will happen to larger areas here and there. There may be some ecological systems that may be too far gone. But again, we are working with ETs behind the scenes to help resolve some of these things. And when they come out in public, then that can be something that accelerates much faster. So I don't think there's anything to really worry about to any great degree, even though there may still be localized challenges for a lot of people to face based on their individual and collective vibrations as a different culture and what they need to experience and what they've decided they have to go through to learn their lessons. So we'll see. But I don't see anything that, massive for the entire planet.
That's great news. That should be our thumbnail. Nothing is happening.
Nothing is
You have
happening.
nothing to worry about, and no one will watch it. But that's good. I'm happy at least with that. So, you're mentioning kind of like Atlantis and how we kind of shifted back into a lower density frequency. I'm curious if we're always oscillating between higher and lower densities in the Earth's evolution, or are we eventually, is Earth, the people of Earth, ever going to graduate in entirety?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. But
Oh,
again, remember, it will only be those who are on that particular frequency.
gotcha. But
There
not
may be those
everybody.
that don't. Maybe not. It depends on what people choose and what they've chosen to experience as their challenge. But, like I said, sometimes you graduate to another class and sometimes people have to repeat that class because they weren't really doing the lessons. They weren't doing their homework.
Gotcha.
But it does, again, remember, we're eternal beings. There's always another chance.
Mm.
And in that sense, from physical reality's perspective, it doesn't matter whether they learn the lesson in this lifetime or another one.
Gotcha.
They always have another chance.
There's a part of me when some of this stuff is talked about that feels this echo of, things from the book of Revelations, like rapture and how maybe that could be a similar thing. I wonder if Bashar has ever talked about any prophecy, whether it's the book of Revelation or anything like that, having
Yeah,
any
well,
truth, or if that's
well,
just some
again,
delusional book that was written
well,
by
yeah,
50
but no,
person.
no, no. There are some truths in it, but again, remember, a lot of interpretation, a
Yeah,
lot of belief systems have
yeah.
colored it, a lot of political ideas have colored it, sociological ideas. And again, this is what I said earlier. Let's take the example you brought up, the idea of the rapture, where in the literal sense, according to the Bible, it's like, okay, all the people that are, more highly connected to God are going to be lifted off the earth, and everyone else that's not is going to be left behind. Remember what I said about semantics.
Mm.
That is a different way of saying some people will ascend in vibration and some people will not. And they will experience a different earth, a more heaven on earth kind of reality. And some people may not because they're not on that frequency. That's a more metaphysical way of understanding it. Whereas somebody that's just steeped in religious terminology will say, well, people are going to be taken up, ascension, and others will be left behind, those that maintain a lower vibration. So it's just another way of saying this. That's why I'm saying you have to look at those and you have to parse the truth based on what we now understand physically, metaphysically, is a way to interpret those things because there are seeds of truth in it, but they have been stated in ways that when they were stated was the language of the level of understanding of the people at the time, and also contain misinterpretations and manipulations in order to control the population because people weren't ready to understand the idea of, well, if you just raise your vibration, you'll shift to a different parallel reality. No one would have been able to wrap their head around that.
Right.
So the way that it was explained is, well, you'll be lifted off the earth and those who didn't follow will be left behind to suffer. That's just the way people talked in those days. Even if they had a psychic sensing of it, that's the way they were going to interpret it because that's the only thing that would make sense to them physiologically. They couldn't understand the idea of shifting frequencies into parallel reality. That just would have been beyond them.
Well, I think it's been about 3 months since we talked last, maybe a little longer. Has Bashar came through with any new messages, anything pressing, or is it kind of like a nice relaxed time right now?
Well, what I already told you, the fact that we're going to have open contact in 2 years is pretty new.
That is newer.
Yeah.
Because, he was saying there was a window of about 5 years, but now it seems not only from Bashar, but from a few different strong psychics that I trust, they're all kind of saying couple of years, guys. And it may seem fast, but remember, they've been assisting us behind the scenes for quite some time and actually working with certain scientists, certain government officials for decades to get to this point. So the fact that in a couple of years they may actually be introduced openly to society is the end result of the fact that they've actually already been guiding us with science, with inventions, with suggestions, with this and that and the other thing for decades already, based on agreements we made decades ago that have been hidden and kept secret, but is now arriving at the point where we can be told, yeah, they've been here for a while, they've been helping for a while. Now we can tell you that because it's time to tell you that. You're ready for that. Now, some people may not be. And the general consensus is there may be some countries that will resist because of their ideologies. And it may take them the full spread until like 2040, 2050 to come on board, because it's still about control and it's still about manipulation and it's about fear. And the ETs aren't going to force themselves on any nation that doesn't want to adopt the ET's principles. But I think eventually a lot of nations will realize they're being left out of a lot of stuff and will start to slowly go, okay, I guess we can relax this and I guess we can relax that. And I guess we can take advantage of this and take advantage of that. And for some nations, it'll probably take them all the way up to the end of the 3-decade reset. But for others, it can happen more quickly.
Well, that will be while Trump is in office. Is he going to give the ETs a big hug, or do we know how he'll feel?
I don't want to get too political here.
Of course.
My understanding, again, not only from Bashar, but from several other sources, is he's not going to be in office at that time. Something will happen. He's not going to be in office at that time.
And so that's within 2 years. That's very interesting. And I've heard this from many psychics as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to go into details. We just have to see what happens.
I'm getting goosebumps.
I'm not taking sides. I'm not making a political comment. My understanding energetically is something will happen. He will not be part of that. He will not be there where he is now when this happens.
Yeah. Shifting topics real quick, because this comes up a lot for us. One of our last questions is, are soulmates real?
Yes and no. You make agreements with everyone. Many people in your lives, everyone in your life that comes into your life is important because they bring a reflection, they bring a lesson. There is a reason why they're in your life in any way, shape, or form, to different degrees and different purposes. The idea of a soulmate can be, certainly, you made an agreement with a member of your soul family. Let's agree to be, let's just say, I'm just going to put it this way. The primary connection that I have in my life is with you. You want to call that a soulmate? Sure. But remember that soulmates can change from life to life, because you may have a different reason for making a connection to a different member of your soul family in that life. And so now you have a different soulmate. So to me and to Bashar, he doesn't like to just focus on the idea of soulmates and twin flames, because a lot of people take it to the point where when someone else comes into their life that may have a valuable lesson for them, they don't really pay attention because they're looking for their soulmate. And this person is obviously not their soulmate, but the lesson that they're bringing to you may be every bit as important as someone like a soulmate. And if you are only focused on, I'm waiting for my soulmate, you may ignore the lesson that is really there for you. That's the most important thing you could learn at that moment. So yes, but I wouldn't necessarily focus on it because, again, you've laid your life path out. You've made your agreements with people. Whoever's going to come into your life is going to come into your life. Whoever's not is not. But whoever comes in is important. They're there for a reason. So you can treat everyone in that way as a kind of soulmate, whether they're temporary, physically, or not, because they all have important reasons for being in your life.
I'm gonna greet everybody,
And you in theirs.
even at the grocery store. Soulmate.
You never know.
I love
You
it.
never know. And yes, there can be people, that say, okay, we're going to be together for the entire span of our lifetime. So in that sense, yeah, you're my soulmate because you're the primary reflection. We're reflections to each other on a primary level for this lesson that we're learning in this life. So yes, that can happen. But I wouldn't focus on it. Just let it happen. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen.
I really loved whenever the first time I heard you talk about the different things that were going to happen when ETs made contact, and it just felt so hopeful and like there were so many solutions to things that feel hopeless.
Yeah.
So someone was asking from the community, will they reveal our soul contracts to us? Would there be a way that they would have a way to do that?
They may prove the existence of the spirit realm because they have the ability to do that too. Yes and no. They won't do it in a way that interferes with our soul contract because we have to learn our own surprises and lessons and things like that. They're not going to just like, oh, well, in 3 years you're going to meet X, Y, and Z, and and for that reason it'll be this and that. Then it'd be like life won't be really worth living if you know every little thing. It's going to be like unwrapping all your Christmas presents for you before Christmas. So, they won't do that. But yes, they'll explain how it all works, just like Bashar is explaining, like we're talking about now, how it all works and what kind of an agreements you made. And they may be able to give you little hints and things like that, but they're not going to do it to the point where it's going to spoil the surprises that you have set up for yourself to learn the lessons you want to learn and have the experiences you want to have. Like I said, they're not going to spoil your birthday by opening up all the boxes beforehand.
And in that vein, how will communication happen? Obviously, there's not the same language spoken. So how will communication happen between us?
Mostly telepathically. A lot of it can be telepathic. They have learned our languages as well. So they can speak to us when and where that's appropriate, but a lot of it will be humanity ascending over time to fourth density being a little bit more telepathic and in their presence because of their higher frequency, inducing us to be more telepathic. So we will get used to the universal language of telepathy over time as well.
I would love to just close with if you could guide the 5-step process of the formula for anyone who's new to it.
Very simply, you act on whatever contains the highest amount of passion, excitement, curiosity that you can first, because passion is your soul's communication to you energetically that this is who you are and this is the next step on your life. That's why that event or that job or that opportunity contains more excitement, more attractiveness than anything else. It's your soul telling you this is the next step you need to take. So you act on your passion first. Step 2 is you take it as far as you can until you can take it no further or until the excitement wanes, making sure that your beliefs are not what's dampening the excitement. That is truly naturally waning. And then you look for the next thing that contains more excitement than anything else. And when we talk about the acting on your passion, we don't mean it has to come with trumpets. We simply mean everyday things that are more exciting than any other option you have at that moment. It could be as simple as I'm more excited about taking a walk than I am with reading a book. So do that first. Step 2, take it as far as you can until you can take it no further. Step 3, you must act on your passion with absolutely zero insistence and zero assumption as to what the outcome actually is, because you actually don't know what the ideal outcome really would look like. You may guess, but you don't really know. So let yourself be excited about the possibility of an ideal outcome and maybe even visualize something that represents an ideal outcome, but don't insist that it has to happen that way, because your soul could actually help you have it happen better than you were capable of imagining with your physical mind. So no insistence, no assumption, let it just come to you. Step 4, remain in a positive state no matter what manifests. Even if what manifests is something you don't objectively prefer, it's got to be there for a reason. Use it in a positive way. Having something manifest that you objectively don't prefer doesn't need to cause a negative reaction in you. You just have to use your curiosity and say, oh, that's curious. I wonder why it happened that way, because I don't prefer that. But sometimes seeing something we don't prefer helps clarify by contrast what we do prefer. And that's a positive way to use what you don't prefer. And when you stay in that positive state and use it that way, you'll get a benefit from it. You'll get a lesson from it. You'll get information that will move you forward. If you stay in a negative state, you will only react to it and continue to perpetuate the thing you don't prefer. Step 5, examine your belief systems. Let go of the fear-based ones, let go of the limiting negative ones, and really, really allow yourself to understand that the only reason you've been holding on to it is because you believe you have to, maybe because the alternative seems scarier to you or not as realistic to you. But you have to understand that's just a story. It's not a fact. Let go of the negative beliefs, examine your belief systems, clean your attic out, and then energy can work more efficiently for you, and you can move forward in a more accelerated way. So those 5 steps: act on your passion, take it as far as you can till you can take it no further, no assumption, no assistance, stay in a positive state, examine and clear out your negative and fear-based beliefs. When you do that, it starts a chain reaction of all sorts of side effects happening. You experience more synchronicity, more effortlessness in your life, more joy in your life, more connection in your life. And you get a reflection of any beliefs you may be holding on to unconsciously that you don't prefer in you, to bring it to your surface and say, oh, now I realize I had this belief. Now I can work to let it go. And it also brings you all the support you need to allow you to continue to act on your excitement in whatever form that support needs to come, because it's not always what we think. But as long as it gives you the ability to do what you need to do when you need to do it, that's a form of support. That's the formula in a nutshell. As Bashar says, don't make it more complicated. Don't overthink it. Just understand it more clearly and more precisely and apply it in every circumstance, no matter what in your life. You will see a marked change in your ability to navigate and move forward in a more accelerated and positive way. Absolutely, it works. It works for me. I get a lot of people coming back saying, hey, when I finally really applied it to every situation, my life changed radically for the better. So the proof is not whether Bashar is real. The proof is in the information. The information proves itself to be real. And that's what's important.
You have anything else?
No, I love that. I'm so happy that we shared that. And thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. Thank you for doing things like this where we can share this kind of information and other people can join in. I really appreciate your ability to do this by following your passion. So thank you, everybody. I really appreciate you all. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful synchronistic day.
Yay.
Bye,
Sending
everybody.
love
We
to
love you.
everybody.
Bye, Darryl.
Bye.